Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Tuesday, February 14th, 2023, which means we're ready for this week's TNT Tuesday. All right, so we are lucky enough here at LCHS to have a laser cutter. So all the laser cutting and engraving. Um, and what's really cool is that if you can kind of figure out how to do finger joints, you can create some really nice looking stuff. So you're kind of seeing the automata that I've created here, and we've got a really nice looking project. Finger joints can be a little bit intimidating, but I just want to take a look today at how we can quickly create something just like a 3-inch cube, like a 3-inch box out of 3/16 plywood. We can use Fusion, the top down modeling approach. And there's a couple little tricks in here that can kind of help us out. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is come out and I'm going to create a sketch, and I'm going to be creating the front of our box first. So I'm going to be picking on this work plane, and I'm going to say that this square is going to be 3 by 3. All right, so we have our 3 by 3 square. I'm now going to come up using offset. Okay, we can see chain selection is on. I'm going to go ahead and pull this down. The thickness of our plywood, which is going to be 3/16 or 0.1875. Okay, we're good to go. All right, so now we have to start kind of figuring out our finger joints. All right, and these are just simply wooden tabs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to have tabs here on each corner, and then I'm going to have tabs in the center. So if you kind of think about it, we're going to have to divide this up into 5 different pieces in order to get those sections so I can extrude them. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go to create, use rectangular pattern. I'm going to pick on my top line. I am going to scroll down. Well, let's just go ahead and do our directions first. And I'm going to scroll down and make sure that my distribution is set at spacing. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this down. I'm going to say I want there to be 5 of these. And if we took 3 inches divided by 5, you're going to see that's going to be zero point 0.6 each, and we can see that that has now been divided into 5 equal pieces. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And now I'm going to do the cheater method to get to go vertical with these as well. So I'm going to come out and go to point, and I'm going to track this into place. I'm going to find that dead center, and then I'm going to come up and I'm going to fix that point into position just like so. All right, so I'm wanting to use these 4 lines right here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use circular pattern to grab those 4 lines. And then I'm going to select on my center point, and I want to say that my quantity is going to be 4. And now we can see we have those vertical lines going up. All right. So we have to do a little bit of trimming here because this profile is going to get very, very complex if we're going to extrude it. So I'm going to use trim. And a really cool thing with trim, if you haven't figured this out, is you can just drag that cursor holding down the key, and we can sort of clean that up. And then obviously the inside we don't want. So I'm gonna go ahead and just delete that. And finally, I'm gonna go ahead and finish the sketch. Look at this in a home view, and now we can start doing our extrusions. So like I said, we're going to have the tabs here on the corners. We're going to have the tabs here in the center. And I'm going to be picking the very center of this and pulling this forward. And this is going to be 0.1875 for a thickness. But the thing we have to remember is that we need to create a new component from this. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and say okay. All right, so let's go ahead and give this component a name. This is going to be our front. So I'm just going to type in front. Our front also needs to be grounded. So just through a right click, we can come up and ground it. And now our front actually needs a physical material. Okay, so when physical material dialog comes up, we're going to come down here and go into our wood. And once we go into wood, we should be able to come down and find some finished plywood, and we can apply that to the top of it. All right, so our finished plywood doesn't actually look like finished plywood, so let's right click on it and let's come up here and let's go to appearance. And now I'm going to come down and I'm going to find something nice here. Go into wood solid, and I'm going to come into finished, and then I can see I have some really nice stuff to use. So I'm going to say that this is going to be our 3D maple curly. We're going to go with semi-gloss on this, drag and drop it in. All right, and now it is looking good. All right, so we're off to a good start. All right, so we have our front done. That thing is anchored down with the ground. Now we can go ahead and start on our right side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a sketch right here on this face. I'm now going to come out and use project, and I'm going to come to each of these tabs at the exact center. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and project those through. All right, I'm now going to create a square that's going to have dimensions that are 3 by 3. All right. And now what I'm going to do is actually create a point once again, and I'm going to use the same trick I used the first time. All right, I need to make sure it's fixed. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come here using a selection window, okay, to grab all that geometry. I can now come up here, go to create. I found out it's kind of easier actually just to go to circular pattern first and then grab the geometry. There we go. And now I'm going to say select the point. Okay, and now obviously I'm wanting for there to be four of these. All right, so it's going to swing that around so we have all that geometry in place. Okay, so you might want to go ahead and just turn this just a little bit to kind of see what it is we need. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and finish up with the sketch and now go into extrude. So I want this tab and this tab. So obviously I want the same for the other side. Okay, I also want this tab, this tab, this tab, and this tab. All right, and then obviously I want the center tabs here. Okay, and then now we can go ahead and pick the center. All right, and now we can go ahead and send that in. So that needs to go in negative 0.1875. It's not going to be a cutting operation or a join operation. This is once again going to be a new component. And now I can go ahead and say okay. All right, so we can see that that is in there. Okay, let's go ahead and give our name for our component, and that's going to be right. Okay, and since this is a component, now we can come up and we can use as built joint to pick that right side and that front. And if you need to preview the motion to make sure there's a connection, then do it. Let's go ahead and say okay on that. All right. So now let's go ahead and right click on this. Let's come up, go into physical material and physical material. Since this is a top down, we're going to see that that finished plywood is already in this design. So we can go ahead and drag and drop that on. And then obviously this is going to need the appearance that we're wanting it. So let's go to appearance and let's go ahead and drag and drop that on. And now we can go ahead and close. So we grab a hold of this. Okay, we're looking pretty good. All right. So if a lot of you are getting frustrated at this point, thinking we're going to be doing this every time, there's a couple tricks that are built into this. So check this out. What we can do is instead of rebuilding that left side the same way we did the right side, what we can do is we can come up here and we can find our move copy feature. All right. We can make sure our move object is going to be a body, and I'm going to come right here to the dead center of this face. Okay, I need to pick on create copy first. And now I'm going to drag with my arrow over and say that needs to go over a distance of 3. Okay, so once we send that over to the distance of 3, we can see that this is actually not in the right spot. So I'm going to add the thickness of my material. Okay, it's going to slide it right into place and I'm going to say okay. All right, so what we have to remember is this is not a component yet. Why? Because when we did the move and copy, all right, that actually did it as a body. So up here underneath the body folder, we can right click on this body and now we can say, go ahead and create a component from that body. Obviously this is going to need a name. So I'm gonna go ahead and type in left. Now, since this is a component, we can come up, we can use an as-built joint and we can connect those two together. All right, and we can take a look at that to make sure that there's that connection. So our left side is also going to need physical material. And I'm gonna go ahead and just drag on that finished plywood. And now I'm gonna right click on it and come up and go into appearance. I'm gonna find that maple and go ahead and drag it and drop it right on top of it. So once again, everything is stationary. It's good to go, fully constrained. All right. And so if you're guessing that we're gonna do the same for our back that we did with our front, okay, exactly. All right. So let's go out there, use our move copy. Once again, our move object is gonna be a body. I'm gonna come right here to the dead center. I'm gonna pick on it. Make sure you pick on create copy. And now we can go ahead and slide that back into position. So that's gonna go back 3. All right. And I'm going to be adding okay, my thickness, my material, which is 0.1875, and I'm going to say okay. All right, so once again, we have to remember that that is a body now, so we have to right click. We're going to create the components from the body, and now we can go ahead and give it a name. So in our case, that's going to be back. Okay, and since it's a component, we can do an as-built joint. So we can take our back and our left side, we can make a connection on those, okay, and that is set. So now let's right click, go up into our physical material. Let's go ahead and drag and drop on that finished plywood. And then let's also go ahead and right click on this and go into our appearance and drag in our maple. All right. So we're looking pretty good. We're almost done with the box. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to be creating the top portion of this. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sketch. And I'm just going to pick right here on the top surface of this. Okay. And now what I'm going to be doing is, probably turning this a little bit where I can see where those tabs are going to be going. All right. And now I can come up, go to create, go into project, and now I can come around to each of those faces and pick on them to make sure all that geometry is being pulled forward where we want those tabs. Okay. And now we can go ahead and say, okay, I'm going to look at this in the top view. And the last thing I'm going to be doing is coming out, creating a square that's going to go from this intersection to this intersection. And if those intersections are not popping up, of course, you've got project, you can pull that forward and then draw the square off of that. All right, so we're looking pretty good here. Let's go ahead and finish the sketch. Look at this in a home view. All right, and let's go ahead and begin doing our extrusions. Okay, so that tab, both of those tabs, and those tabs, and then we have this one right here in the middle, and we're obviously going to be extruding that down. Operation is going to be a new component, and the thickness that this needs to be is going to be 0.1875. All right, we're putting that right exactly where it needs to be. All right, so that is a component. Let's go ahead and rename that. That's going to be top. Okay, and once again, we have to make sure we have an as-built joint, and let's just go ahead and connect the top to the right side. Make sure we have that rigid connection. All right, and we can say okay. So our top is going to need some physical material. Once again, we're going to go ahead and drag on our finished plywood. All right, and now our top is going to be needing an appearance. So let's go ahead and drag on that maple. Okay, we got it. Now we can go ahead and say okay. All right, so we're missing one last thing. That's going to be the bottom. So all we have to do is go to move copy, make sure our move object is going to be a body. Okay, we're going to come here to the dead center. We're going to pick on it, make sure we're switching this over to create copy. And now we can drag this down, and this needs to go down a distance of 3. And now we're going to go ahead and add the thickness of our material, which is 0.1875. And now we're going to say okay. We have to remember that what we just did is now a body, so we're going to have to right click on it, create a component from the body. Let's go ahead and name that component. In this case, it's going to be bottom. Okay, and now we can go ahead and do our as-built joint. Okay, orbiting this over, we can pick our bottom, we can pick our right side. Let's do that again. As-built joint, there's our bottom. Okay, there is the right side, and let's go ahead, make sure we have a rigid connection, and let's say okay. And now we can right click on this, come up into our physical material, make sure to drag on that finished plywood. And once again, let's go ahead and right click on that and put in our appearance, which is going to be that maple. All right, so we're looking good. All right, so we have ourselves a completed box. Just to make sure everything is going to be working well for us, okay, what we can do is always come up to inspect. We can go to interference. We can select the entire assembly. Everything is selected, and now we can go ahead and do a compute. And we can see that there are no interferences detected, which means all of our finger joints are working well. All right. And if I were having my kids actually create this, the front, the back, the sides, the bottom would all be glued with some sort of a wood glue, and then I would be obviously leaving that top unglued, so they could simply open that up. But they're going to need some sort of a handle probably, just to get their finger in there to actually be able to pry that up. So I can come out, create a sketch, create a circle. We can go ahead and track this into place. And I don't know. I think that diameter 0.75 would probably work pretty well. And now we can simply just come in here. We can do an extrude. Okay, we can cut that down. All right, that's going to be a cut. We're going to say okay to that. All right, and we are good to go. All right, so that's how you can quickly go out there and create, just in this case, just going to be a 3-inch wooden box with finger joints. You have to remember now is that since we were using the whole body component sort of thing, if you did engravings on the front, they're not going to be showing up on the back. Okay, that's the whole benefit of using bodies to kind of get that stuff that you need. So it's not going to be trickling over into the other part. All right, so there's a lot of great things there. I hope you enjoy that. All right, have fun with it.